so excited to be talking about, I think, one of the most fun movies at the festival this year, Bubble Squeak. We're here with the cast, Dave Franco, Himesh Patel, Sarah Goldberg, and director Evan Twohy. Welcome, guys.
Thanks for having us.
So great to have you here. So this film has such a unique sensibility. Evan, this is your debut feature. What were you trying to achieve here? How would you describe the tone of Bubble and Squeak?
How would I describe the tone? Well, you know, this is a project that has been with me for really most of my adult life. I think I started writing it almost 15 years ago. You know, I basically wrote this thing, put it away, and then reopened it a decade later. And it's this thing that doesn't make, it's absurd inherently. And I think, there is this process of sort of taking this thing that's illogical and absurd, and then as an adult, at much older, trying to make sense of it and apply it to my life and pull everything I had learned into it. So, tonally, I think it has this mix of being this thing that doesn't make sense, and we really tried to sort of embrace keeping things in it that don't really make logical sense, but then also sort of, pulling in the melancholy and sort of, the wisdom that you gain as you get older. So I guess I'll say that there's a bit of a shift in tone that slowly happens as you start to realize in this film that it's not as absurd as it might let on to be.
What percentage of that original script from 15 years ago is in the final film?
From 15 years ago? Well, the first scene is exactly the same.
Oh, wow.
But what's different is the ending. And I think it's because as I learned more about life, it sort of the natural ending for these two characters who go on this journey through this movie, sort of, it doesn't end where I thought it would end when I was young. It didn't change in that, it was a gradual kind of chipping away at it and sort of adding layers to it.
So Himesh and Sarah play newlyweds going on a cost-effective honeymoon to a country that has a rather draconian law against the import of cabbages. So, I mean, just the idea of the cabbages, where did that come from?
I wish I had an answer. I don't remember. I think I was 21 years old. But I think it was, it was basically it was essentially a writing exercise for myself. It was basically what's the craziest thing that I could think that someone could do, and then what's sort of the worst punishment for doing that I could think of, right? So I don't specifically know where cabbages came from, but it just, it was before I sort of understood the character that Sarah plays, and then once you make a choice for the character, then it's about explaining who they are and why they would do this. So I think the cabbages is probably the one pure, nonsensical, illogical thing that has no particular explanation.
And there are some reveals here that we don't want to spoil right now because viewers should discover it on their own. But Himesh and Sarah, tell us a little bit about the dynamic of your characters' relationship. Their marriage is just starting, but there's already some conflict and some issues to work through.
Yeah, I mean, we discussed it the first time we met, which was in Estonia, where we shot this movie. We hadn't met before that. We exchanged a few emails. So when we sat down around the table with Evan, we kind of discussed kind of what had been bubbling away in our head, no pun intended. Thank you very much. what had been in our heads for quite a while at that point. And the most beautiful thing about it was that very quickly we realized we were sort of on the same page in a lot of ways, in terms of the sort of tone of everything. But in terms of the character backgrounds, we kind of discussed it a little bit, just sort of how long they might have been together before they got married and are therefore on their honeymoon.
And the text is so specific and really fun and ever so slightly heightened, but also quite grounded. And so there's a real rhythm to the language that I think we both tapped into quite quickly and sort of formed a little double act with. And I think that it felt important to be loyal to that rhythm. And even though they're very different, and part of this film is about, love and how you can love someone, but maybe that person isn't someone you're going to grow with, or somebody who, you know, maybe you're not right for each other, or maybe you're love enough. And so I feel like with this double act, they're so individual, but there was a piece we had to find that was them as a unit. That's like, you know, they have an answer to each other's questions and rhythms, and they're used to each other's idiosyncrasies. So we fell into that really quickly because it's all on the page. It was so beautifully, rhythmically on the page. But yeah, there was sort of a lot about us kind of figuring out what stage they are when they decide to be, you know, get married and start their lives together, and all the questions that arise with that.
Yeah, it's interesting because their dynamic does feel like that they know each other so well that it almost feels like that they're at a later stage of their marriage in a way.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think because
that, yeah.
also because of what they're going through, so much of it is them sort of butting heads and not quite seeing each other. The question for me was like, where is the actual connection, and how do we find that, which we quite beautifully do at a specific point. Yeah.
I was just gonna pay you guys a compliment. Yeah, a lot of the movie is you guys butting heads, but you can feel this undercurrent of love still between you the whole way through, which is so necessary.
And Dave, you inject a jolt of wild, manic energy at a certain point in the film. Your character even has like an Ursine twist, I would say.
Very well put. There it is.
Right around. So this character, I mean, first off, like, I was sent the script when I was on vacation in Thailand, and they were like, you need to read this quick. They needed an answer. And I was like, all right. So I'm reading through this script, and I'm just chuckling to myself in a Thai cafe, and then I get to my role. And tell me if I'm wrong, on the page, I think it was like a 55-year-old grizzled Australian. I was like, all right. And so I really loved the role, and I was like, I don't know if I could do this as that, but I think I see a way into this. And is it okay for me to?
Yeah.
Yes. And so my introduction is I'm a guy who meets them in the woods, and I have just killed a bear, skinned the bear, and now I'm wearing the bear.
And you wear the bear costume pretty much the whole time we see you.
Pretty much the whole time, yeah.
It's incredible. No, I mean, there's so many unforgettable images and moments and characters in this film. I can't wait for people to see it. Seriously, it's so much fun. What do you hope that people will take away from it?
Well, I guess I'll say first that, like, I was so lucky to have more than three, but these three incredible actors. Like, more than anything, like, I don't know, it's just, I would love, I'm just very honored to have been able to get these three actors to do this insane movie. So I'm so excited for people to see what they did in this movie. I don't know, I think, like, my hope, to me, I think, like, we sort of somehow forced this crazy movie that sort of, like, everyone thought was just like a stunt through a system that does not really allow for weirdness in this way. So I think that's, like, and it's a real testament to our producers and really the whole team behind this sort of coming together, and as well as our financing partners for trusting us. It's real, like, I love this thing, and we put so much into it over so many years that I just hope people take that. It's sort of a love letter to the process of it being made, in a way. And I think that's, like, what I'm most proud of, is that this team put so much into forcing this square peg into the very, like, inhospitable round hole that is the Hollywood system.
I love it. Well,
Can I ask Evan a question?
please.
So the movie is so distinct. It's such your voice, and, like, I've never seen anything quite like it. And I guess I'm curious, like, what your references, what your influences were, and where I don't know, just if there is any something.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of my favorite movies of all time is Bringing Up Baby. And I think I sort of consider this a modern Screwball. And I think the dynamic at the core of it. I always liked that sort of banter. I don't always see sort of script forward movies like that anymore that are just about the voice. So definitely looking at some of my favorite older movies. Visually, we really, I think it gets some Wes Anderson comparisons, but I think we were really looking at like Roy Anderson. Those sort of our biggest visual reference.
The Baltic setting helps in that regard. I definitely see the Roy Anderson influence, and I love that Bringing Up Baby was kind of a reference there too, because there is that extraordinary like wavelength that this film works on. That's just like, where is this coming from? This is like another world.
Yes.
Well, we were in another world as well, being in Estonia, and it was in summer, so there was like 23 hours of daylight every day. So we were in this kind of like weird in between, and we all fell in love with Estonia, and it was just such a magical place. And yeah, I mean, I think I wanted to say about the film with, that there's a kind of, there's like a purity to this thing that's like, Evan had this vision all the way back to when he was 18 years old, and like to see something all the way through from start to finish and have it maintain its creative integrity, like it's very rare. And so with people watching it, like obviously we all hope that they enjoy it and maybe take something away about relationships or maybe their own honesty or lies within their own dynamics. But like, I think the main thing that's so beautiful about this is it's like a celebration of film, because it's a piece that is so unusual and it's really come to full fruition after such a long ride.